Welcome back to part 2 of the Lore 101 series. If you haven't watched the last video, I would suggest you go check it out, but if that's too much hassle, I'll go ahead and recap it for you right now. So, the light in the void, boom, we get a new universe. Titans woke up from a world soul and they got to work ordering things, but damn it, there are demons messing things up. Sargeras learns about the Void Lords and gets really sad. It goes off and pouts. Oh, and he chippy-chopped a planet in half. Aggramar finds Azeroth, and there's old gods. Oh no. Rest of the Pantheon help out, and eventually the Titans and the Titan Keepers they created can get to work ordering Azeroth now that they've locked up the old gods. Except for Yasiraj, that one got ripped out of the planet. Titans finish up ordering Azeroth, and they peace out. Next, we had Galakrond turn into a hungry caterpillar and eat everything in sight, even other dragons, after drinking some water polluted by Yogg-Saron. Tyr knew this was more than a minor issue, and worked along 5 other primal dragons to defeat Galakrond, and then he got them ordered and all aspectral. You know, everyone likes that word, aspectral. Yeah. And finally, Odin hated that, and he took his ball and went home. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Jin, and let's get started on today's topic. So, Aggramar, he's wandering around the universe on a little walkabout, you know. And what does he find? He finds the planet of Draenor. There is no world soul, though, so not really gonna spend a lot of time with it. The planet is just covered in plants. There's plants everywhere because, well, it had an overabundance of spirit. Azeroth actually had the opposite problem. They had not enough spirit because the world soul was sucking it all dry. And that's actually what made the elemental lords just go kind of crazy. Anyway, so these plants that are covering all of Draenor, they were so big and massive that they grew to the point that they had actually gained like a crude consciousness. This massive amalgamation became known as the Evergrowth. Aggramar thought that this just won't do. No, well, I don't like that. And he created something to combat the Evergrowth so that the rest of the life on Draenor has a chance. So what he created was called the Grond. Basically, he made a living mountain. He was like, you, mountain, wake up, fight the plants. So, like I said, has him go fight the plants, and he gets to work on them. Started with one of these Evergrowths. There's actually 3 of them. Started with the one called Zang. Yeah, well, that one's covered in big mushrooms. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Anyway, the second one that he went after, this big mountain, he's going after it, is called Nanu. Like, I don't know, like Mork and Mindy or something. Nanu. Oh, is that how he, I don't actually know how he did that. Anyway, that one's covered in a huge, dense jungle. And the third one of these Evergrowths, or whatever, these giant freaking plants, was called the Botan. Botan. That was a big old lush forest. Anyway, Grond, he managed to take out the first 2. So Zang turned into a big mush that formed into the Zangar Sea. And then obviously Zangarmarsh eventually. And then Nanu fell and formed what is now the Tanan Jungle. Cool, right? So, Botan actually managed to kill Grond by creeping his little vines into the cracks that had formed during the battle. Yeah, you know, you're a big mountain guy, you get some cracks in him. So, Grond fell and his body formed that is now the mountain range of Nagrand. Yeah, poor guy. Anyway, so from the Grond though, there's actually a bunch of little guys that are running around, and they're called the Colossals. They're just little mountains. Little mountain guys. Well, Aggramar saw this and was like, okay, still got a chance. We can still do this. And so he was like, he actually created some huge titanic runes in these big massive stones. I don't know, he supercharged these stupid little colossals and then got to work on them. So just as he finished making his little buddies all strong, he sensed a great disturbance in, I don't know, the Great Dark Beyond. It happened to be the death of one of the Constellars. Aggramar was like, I gotta go, guys. Like, I hope you win, but I'm out of here. So the Colossals, they knew they couldn't take on Botan head on, so they actually decided to mess with him. So they started chopping down all the trees, and just like clockwork, Botan showed up and was like, what are you doing to all my trees? What the hell, man? I like my trees. Well, like I said, this little trap worked, and these little Colossals, they jumped all over the guy, and they actually blew themselves up in a manner to just stop Botan, and well, the poor Colossals, they died, but don't worry, they turned into like Ogron and Gron, and, you know, they come back, they're fine. Anyway, so let's get back to Aggramar. Aggramar is running off to find out what managed to take out that Constellar and set off the whole Titan signal, like bat signal or something like that. And wouldn't you know it, it was Sargeras who took him out. Yeah, and with Sargeras that did it personally. Sargeras had been busy doing some thinking while the other Titans were hard at work, and with the knowledge that the Void Titan could be on the verge of being born, he made up his mind. You gotta burn it down. Yeah, it was Sargeras at this point came up with a genius plan to purge the universe of all life so the Void wouldn't have anything to corrupt. Good, that's, I don't know, that's pretty, that's not using your noggin there, Sargeras. Whatever. And who better to burn down the universe than those little agents of chaos that he'd been locking up for who the hell knows how long. Yeah, he let the demons out of Mardum, gave them a little Titan supercharged, and even told them, it's like, look, I know the secret how to take you guys out now, because if I kill you in the Twisting Nether, you're gone for good. So work for me. And they're like, okay, boss, let's do it. And they really liked this plan, so they got to do what they like to do, cause horrible chaos and just burn down the universe, and yeah. So, like I said, Aggramar came to the scene right when Sargeras had sicked his new demon army on an unsuspecting world. Clearly this freaked him out, and Aggramar was like, what are you doing? What is your freaking problem? What's going on? Well, the only thing that Sargeras replied to him is, my burning crusade was the sole means to purify the universe. I don't know, that's probably not what he sounds like. Well, they got into a fight, and they ended up both breaking their swords. They're like, pow! Anyway, that's why when you get the sword off of Aggramar in the Antorus raid, it looks like this. Broken, right? Yeah. Anyway, Aggramar ran off and tattled, and then came back with his buds. Obviously, the rest of the Titans. Amathul was like, dude, you gotta stop this. In fact, we found a really cool world soul that we named Azeroth. I bet when this Titan wakes up, she can even beat up the Void Lords. Well, Sargeras was listening. Very, like, it was very interesting. Very powerful world soul. I'd like to know about that. Mind, however, was not changed. Not one bit. The only thing he did want to know, though, is where is exactly this world soul? That's something I do want to know. Aggramar thought that he could get him to switch sides with the power of nostalgia, though. So what he did is he laid down his weapon and recounted the good old days. And, the guy was like, "No, man, don't you remember we were doing?" And Sargeras, he's like, "No, he didn't want to hear any of it." Well, obviously the rest of the Pantheon tried to jump him, and a crazy long fight ensued that totally wrecked this section of the solar system or whatever. I don't know. This part of the universe totally wrecked because there was actually a planet that got completely obliterated called Nihilum. I don't know. It's a weird word. Yeah, and now it's just called the Doom World. Fun fact, though, the blood DK artifact weapon Maw of the Damned was forged using metal from this planet. Cool, right? Anyway, it was too bad, though. Sargeras was just too good. In fact, the Pantheon were probably like,
you're clearly outnumbered.
That's true. But you are clearly outmatched.
He won. But right before he totally took out the rest of the Pantheon, Norganon, he's a smart one. He cast a cool little spell that protected their spirits and whisked them off to Azeroth. We will return to that in just a little bit. So, Sargeras obviously assumed that he totally won since the Pantheon's bodies were completely destroyed in the crazy fell firestorm that he created. He was like, I don't know, it's probably like the, when the Megazord does the crazy thing, and the bodies and the bad guy just goes away. Yeah, that's kind of what he did. Now that he got those pesky Titans out of the way, he needed to step up his operations because over 100 million worlds had been ordered by the Titans, so he really needed to get to work. So, obviously the best way to do that is to hire help, and he did that by tracking down the best project managers he could find. That's right, it was the Eridar. So, he traveled to Argus, and he told their leaders, Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, and Velen, that he would make them, well, basically essentially gods. He's like, it's gonna be great, guys. Yeah, it's gonna be the best. Well, before moving on, we got a quick note on Argus. Obviously, this was the home of the super advanced race known as the Eridar, and they were ruled by a triumvirate. Those three names that I just mentioned. Kil'jaeden, Archimonde, Velen. It used to be a duumvirate. That's a weird word, duumvirate. Okay. But Archimonde managed to make his way onto the city council. I guess that's what it kind of was, a planet council. And it was eventually become a triumvirate. Also, the demonology warlock artifact weapon was the skull of Archimonde's old mentor, Valkiel. Alkeel. Nope, he was always kind of an asshole. Yeah, he actually was kind of a bad guy, even though he was on the Triumvirate. So, Kil'jaeden was probably the politician of the bunch of these three because, you know, he was the one that became known as the Deceiver. And Velen, he was the priest of the group, and he was this really fervent follower of the light. He even had something known as the Atamal Crystal that would grant him visions of the future. So, when Sargeras offered this cool new position in his Burning Legion, Velen got a vision and realized that they wouldn't be gods, as Sargeras told him. They would turn into hideous, awful monsters. He was like, ah! He actually called them and he's like, oh, we're gonna be the Manari. That's just like an Eridar word for bad guys. Bad. Whatever. Oh, and since he was all buddy-buddy with the light, a Naru named Kure reached out to him and told Velen, you want to get you out of there? You and like all your buddies that you're good with? Yeah, so we're gonna get you out of there. So Sargeras showed up and he was like, all right, who wants to become an evil monster? Kil'jaeden and Aggramar were happy to do so, but Velen slipped out the back. He was kind of like that Homer gif where he's just like, you know, that one. Anyway, he met up with Kure and he jumped aboard a Naru dimensional fortress named the Genedar. Yeah, the Genedar. After they took off, they renamed themselves the Draenei, or the Exiled Ones. Oh yeah, if you play a Draenei, it actually means exiled one. Well, the rest of the Eridar got all fellified, and Sargeras put them to work, leading his demon armies across the world. Delegate, baby. Yeah. Time to get to work. Well, back to the Titans and their souls that Narganon protected. Okay, so they cast a spell after Sargeras killed them, and they floated off towards Azeroth, like I said. What they were looking for were vessels to contain their spirits. So, what do? They slammed into the Keepers, and, well, that caused a little bit of a problem, because it actually overwhelmed the Keepers, the Titan Keepers, with all of the Titans' memories. What they did is they witnessed everything, and it just totally messed with them, and suddenly it stopped. They only got like a long flash of the memories, and it dimmed. Well, this really confused the Keepers, and they called out to the Pantheon for answers, but obviously no one's there to pick up. Right? And this made the Keepers really sad. They're like, what's going on? They're not answering our calls. It's terrible. Well, Yogg-Saron knew something was up, since he could sense their fragile little emotional states, and he was like, I'm going to take advantage of this. I think I can use this. So, he hatched a little plan, not only to escape, but to transform life all over Azeroth. Step number 1, get to Loken. Because Loken took this whole silence of the Pantheon to hardest. He was moping all over the place. He's like, so sad. They're just not talking to me. I don't know what to do. So the first thing that Yogg did is he started trying to mess with him in his dreams. He's like, oh man, you gotta like totally betray everyone. That really didn't work though. Loken was, however, really super sad. So what he actually started to do is he was having little therapy sessions with one of his friends, good old buddy named Sif. Sif happened to be a Vrykul and was Thorum's wife. Probably guess where this is going. So the two of them would often meet in secret and, well, kind of the obvious thing happened. Well, Loken and Sif are becoming obviously a whole lot more than friends, and Yogg sees his opening. So, Yogg-Saron manages to twist Loken's feelings towards Sif into crazy obsession. He's like, Sif's the best. Gonna be my girlfriend. We're gonna go steady. Well, Loken obviously was acting real crazy and clingy and just gave Sif the ick. And she's like, look, I think I'm done with this. Well, it really pissed off Loken. So much so that Loken actually killed Sif. I mean, it was kind of an accident. Maybe. I don't know. But shortly after that happened, the spirit of Sif appeared before Loken. I forgive you, but don't tell Thorum. Whatever you do, do not tell Thorum that you killed me, okay? Don't do that. I do forgive you, though. It's fine. Obviously, Loken should have seen through this trick by Yogg, but his fear got the better of him, and he covered up the murder. First thing is Loken dragged the body out to the Storm Peaks, and he blamed the murder on Arngrim. Anyway, is the king of the Ice Giants. So, king of the Ice Giants. Thorum obviously gets pissed, and he sets his Storm Giants against the Ice Giants in a full-out war. Now, the image of Sif continued to guide Loken's actions throughout all of this. It's like, hey, do this, hey, do that. The first thing that she does is she convinces him to use the Forge of Wills to build a whole new army to protect Ulduar. And then she actually managed to convince him to punish Thorum for letting his anger get out of hand and starting a war between the giants. He was even like, what would Sif think of you, you sad little sack? What would Sif think? Well, obviously, Thorum got really sad. And, well, he actually left Ulduar and he went and sat in seclusion for a ridiculously long time. Well, with Thorum sulking, Loken sent out his army and wiped up the rest of the ice giants. While his army fought against the giants, he noticed something kind of funky about this whole army that he had printed. They're all dark and gloomy looking. He's like, what is that? That's strange. Well, he called out to Sif, but he got no response. It kind of finally dawned on him that wasn't Sif at all. It was an illusion sent by Yogg-Saron to mess with him. Well, Loken didn't know it at the time, but the spirit of Yogg-Saron also corrupted the Forge of Wills. This was the step 2 in Yogg's plan. Corrupt the Titan Forge with the Curse of Flesh. The Curse of Flesh eventually spread its corruption throughout all of the Titan Keepers' creation. At this point, Loken just wanted to cover up his crimes regardless of what it took, even if it meant embracing the power of Yogg-Saron. His first goal was to somehow remove the threat of Odin and his Valajar army. And I know what you're thinking, you're like, Valajar army, what the heck is that? Well, after the dragons were ordered, he built his own army by telling the local Vrykul that he would raise up the greatest warriors in life to join him in the halls of valor and death. One problem though, he had no idea how to raise spirits from the dead. He's like, what? I don't know how to do that. I'm just a Titan Keeper. What? So what he had to do is he studied the energies of the Shadowlands, even gave up his eye for it. Anyway, his plan was to create spectral beings out of the Vrykul to ferry the souls from the Shadowlands back to the Halls of Valor. They would be known as Valkyr. Now, creating Valkyr had a cost. They would be cursed to live as phantom beings for all eternity. And because of this, no Vrykul volunteered to become a Valkyr. Like, yeah, that does not sound like a good idea. I just sit around ferrying souls? No thanks. Don't want to do that. Odin wasn't going to give up on his plan, though. So he decided, I'm just going to do it by force. Helya hated that idea. Alright, so Helya, she's the one who actually brought up the whole Halls of Valor for him, ripped out part of Ulduar. You can get that one. And she even said, if you keep doing this, if you follow this plan, I'm going to put your little Halls of Valor back in Ulduar. It's going to reverse the spell, I guess. I don't know. Leviosa Reverso or something. I don't know. Odin, well, and the jerk that he is, he didn't like that threat one bit. So he struck down Helya and destroyed her physical form. And he made her into the very first Valkyr. Obviously hated Odin for what he had did to her. But she was unable to disobey him at this point. She couldn't do anything. She was a Valkyr now. Kind of messed up. No, it's not kind of messed up. It's insanely messed up. Like, Odin is Odin's awful. Just, that's one thing you need to know. Alright, back to Loken. He needed a way to put a stop to Odin because, well, he did have the Valajar army. And he knew a direct attack would be really stupid. So, he decided he was going to recruit Helya to assist him. Because Helya had been acting as a Valkyr for millennia at this point. And she's still pissed at Odin, obviously. So, what Loken managed to get Helya to do was use the exact same trick that she used to seal the elemental planes up, when she put all the Fire Lord and, the Earth Mother, that kind of crap. Anyway, so she did that same little trick, and she locked up the Halls of Valor. Now he can't get out. And neither can the Valajar. Oh, too bad. Hate to see it happen to such a nice person. Guy's an ass. Like I said, try as it might, the Valajar army and Odin could not escape from the barrier that Helya created. And Helya was now free, and created her own realm below the Halls of Valor and bound it to the oceans of Azeroth. The new realm was named Helheim. This is pretty cool. Helheim. Well, Helheim was all really spooky and shit, because, well, she was really, really angry, and I guess that's what happens. And the souls that got trapped down there, they became known as the Kavaldir. Now that Odin was out of the way, Loken went back to Ulduar to try and get rid of the rest of the Keepers. But when he got back, he found Mimiron had been looking into an anomaly in the new Titan Forge Loken had created. Anyway, Mimiron discovered the corruption in the Forge of Wills. But before Mimiron could do anything about it, Loken sabotaged his workshop, killing Mimiron. However, Mimiron wasn't completely out of the picture. In fact, his mechanomes built a new body for the Keeper, and that's why he doesn't look like the other one, why he's all mechanomy. But this little brush with death broke his mind. He now locked himself in his workshop to play with his little inventions and didn't do anything else. Next up on the chopping block was Freya. So Loken took his little army and confronted her within her Temple of Life and just got the crap kicked out of her, and Yogg jumped on this opportunity. So Yogg-Saron compelled her to go hide in Ulduar, where she would play with her plants for now until the Ulduar raid, honestly. Now, it was Hodyr's turn. While Loken took care of Freya, his Titanforge followers attacked Hodyr in his Temple of Winter. They were led by two fire giants, Ignis and Vulcan, because fire beats ice, I guess. Super effective. The fire giants easily took out Hodyr's forces, and Loken showed up to finish off the Keeper. Once again, Yogg warped Hodyr's mind, and he went to go play in Ulduar and make it all wintry and stuff. Tyr and Arcadis, however, managed to avoid all of this betrayal, and they just went and hid. So, they had actually suspected something was going on, and obviously their suspicions were confirmed when they witnessed the attack on Hodyr. So Tyr and Arcadis knew that they really couldn't take on Loken directly, so the two of them, as well as their another Titanforge buddy, Ironaya, hid among the icy cliffs and the storm peaks. Loken tried to find them, but Tyr did love his secrets, and he was the hide-and-seek champ after all. Loken assumed Tyr and Arcadis must have abandoned the region, so he's just like, you know what, Ulduar's mine now, and he took it over completely. First thing he did is he disabled the Forge of Wills, and he banished most of his creations, because he's like, that's the Curse of Flesh, get out of here. Ugh, get out of here. And then he hacked the Gibson, and he named himself Prime Designate. Yeah, he actually completely changed all the programming in Ulduar that had like, oh, Odin's the Prime Designate. He's like, no, I'm the Prime Designate now. Look at me. I'm Prime Designate now. This whole time, Loken was scared shitless, so the Pantheon and Aggramar would show up and put him in a timeout or something. And during this whole coup, Loken always assumed Highkeeper Ra would show up, but he never did. So what actually happened to him? In fact, Loken wanted to know, so he actually sent some of the Titanforge south to Uldum. Uldum, that's where the Forge of Origination was built. And once they got there, they found out no one knew what had happened to Ra. He just kind of disappeared. Oh, and since he sent some of those Titanforge creations down south, they spread the Curse of Flesh too. Oops. Anyway, where is actually Ra? Well, he was incredibly sad. Right? You thought Loken took it really hard. Well, Ra took it hard, but he took it hard because he was the only one that realized what this whole thing meant. He knew the Pantheon was gone. He took the remnants of Aman'Thrul from within him and he stored it in a special container deep beneath the Veil of Eternal Blossom. And we'll probably talk about that in a future episode, what happens with that. Alright, back to what's happening up north. With Loken pretty much locked up in Ulduar, not talking to anyone right now, the Titanforge creations, the Giants, Earthen, and Vrykul, they just spread out and started just doing their own thing. And they even formed their own clans. Then one day, those two fire giants, Ignis and Vulcan, right, the ones that attacked Hodyr, I guess they got bored or something, and they took control of one of the clans named the Winterscorn. And they got them ready for war. Right around this time, the Curse of Flesh really took hold of the Winterscorn, but this didn't stop our little fire giant comrades. Well, rather than abandoning their plans, they also crafted molten golems and iron constructs to bolster the ranks. They're like, get in there, you need more help. So the army marched against the Earthen, the first people they went against, and up in their subterranean lairs. And obviously the Earthen were not expecting the Vrykul clan to attack them, and they were completely unprepared. And obviously this attack nearly wiped them out because they're Earthen, just hanging out in their little subterranean lairs, and it was fine. However, during the battle, a few remaining survivors were cornered. As a Vrykul charged them, he was actually cut down before he reached any of the surviving Earthen. The Vrykul responsible for killing this kin, Yrgrim, yelled out to the Earthen, Follow me if you want to live. Later, the Earthen asked the Vrykul why he had saved them. He said, "The battle lust had lifted from my eyes, and I have seen the truth. Killing for the sake of killing, conquest for the sake of conquest. There is no honor in such things. There is only shame and regret." So Yrgrim led the survivors to the Keeper Tyr, Arcadis, and Ironai, believing that they were the only ones that could save them from the Winterscorn. He replied, "I cannot wash the blood from your hands. No one can. All I can offer you is a way forward. Stand by my side. Hunt the wicked with the same ferocity you used to hunt the Earthen. Do this, and you will find the path to redemption." So Yrgrim swore an oath upon the twin moons to hold to Tyr's ideals. Yes, Azeroth has 2 moons. Tyr and Arcadis crafted a shield unlike any ever made and gifted it to Yrgrim. This was the Truth Guard, the Protection Paladin's artifact. So how they made it was Tyr gave a little portion of his silver hand to imbue it with righteousness, and Ironaya crafted a stone disc from her hide and etched it with runes of protection. And Tyr and company were not happy one bit with the news that these asshats running around killing all these Titan Forge, so Tyr led the remaining Earthen in battle against the Winterscorn in the Earthen's home. Arcadis and Ironai built up the defenses of the Earthen to ward off future attacks, and eventually the Earthen and Tyr are able to drive back the Winterscorn armies. Ignis and Vulcan didn't take this very well, though. Now, they created magical snares to enslave entire flights of primal dragons and turn them into beasts of war. And then, the next assault against the Earthen shattered their defenses, and put them and their buddies, Tyr, Arcadis, and Ironai, in full retreat. Tyr was like, alright, okay, check this out. Summon the dragon aspects to his aid. Probably blew like the dragon flute or something like that, like the Green Ranger. You know how it goes. So, they showed up, and the aspects took one look around, and they were like, what the crap? Well, the aspects assaulted the Winterscorn with everything that they had. Alexstrasza created these towering walls of fire to keep the Winterscorn at bay. Malygos drained all the arcane energy powering the golems and construct, rendering them completely useless. And Neltharion raised whole mountains to corral and contain the Vrykul and their giant leaders. Like, seriously, he was just like, man, you go over here. There you go. And finally, Ysera and Nozdormu worked in unison to craft a spell that would put an end to the Winterscorn. They summoned a mist that caused them to fall asleep, and they locked them away in entombed cities all across the north. Now that the Winterscorn had been defeated, Tyr saw this as a perfect opportunity to finally bring down Loken. Tyr and his buds came up with a plan to gather their little intel that they needed. So what they were going to do is they were going to steal the discs of Norgannon. So here's the plan. Tyr confronts Loken at the gates of Ulduar, but he doesn't attack him or anything. He just gets into a shouting match and tells him that you're a loser and you suck and you're the worst, blah, 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 blah. While this is going down, Arcadis and Ironai sneak into Ulduar and steal the discs. Eventually, Tyr gets the little signal and they're like, get out, it's time to go. And eventually, Tyr was just like, oh, never mind, Loken, you're cool, see you later. And he just left. So they managed to get the discs, but they also know that Loken's going to come after them as soon as he figures out that those discs are gone. Well, they decided to journey south to find refuge so that they could plan their next move. Before leaving, though, the 3 of them are able to convince a large number of Titan Forge to leave with them. But he instructs Yrgrim to stay behind and protect them in their retreat, because he's got a cool shield now. Yep. So, who actually came with them? Well, there's a large group of Vrykul affected with the Curse of Flesh, most of the surviving Earthen, and many of the Mechanomes as well. Obviously, eventually Loken learned that the discs were gone, and he kind of loses it. He turns to the only creatures that he knew could possibly stop the Keepers. And they were Cathraxi, Zakajaz, and Kithix. These 2 Cathraxi had actually served the old gods during the Black Empire, these big old lobster-looking things. The Keepers had actually sealed them up and many of the Inraki away in the underground chambers along with the old gods. Well, Loken woke these 2 Cathraxi up and told them to go after Tyr and his allies. Obviously normal, these minions of the Black Empire would have told a Titan creation to get lost, but they could see that he was under the influence of Yogg-Saron, so they're like, you got it, boss, let's go get him. Well, the Cathraxi eventually caught up with our little gang far to the south in the Tranquil Glade. Bet you know where that Tranquil Glade is. Tyr told the other Keepers to run for it, and he'll deal with these Jagoffs. Well, the battle lasted for 6 days and nights, and obviously, as he's getting real tired, I mean, that's a long time of fighting. That's a lot of fighting. And fatigue was finally taking hold of him. Well, In order to deal with these guys, Tyr finally unleashed all his remaining Titan power, and he sacrificed himself in the process.
Perhaps you will be proved right, that mortals are weak and destined to fall into darkness. Yet the courage of the aspects and the promise of the mortals fills me with hope. Hope that they will carry on the Titan's legacy. So, if by the destruction of this body, you are purged from this world, so be it.
So, you know how Aggramar had actually stayed behind to protect and, like, got a shield? I don't know. He actually tried to catch up with the Cathraxi, but he was too late. He actually arrived to find Tyr and Zakajaz dead. Arcadus and Ironaya investigated the site where the battle, and they found just a huge, massive crater. No sign of Kithix, though. In fact, Kithix was, like, severely wounded in the battle, and he just ran for it. In fact, he just headed west. West, east, I don't know. Whatever. To honor their fallen comrade, Ironaya named the glade surrounding the crater Tyr's Fall. Or, in the Vrykul tongue, Tyr's Fall. Guessed right, didn't you? Anyway, Ironaya and her allies buried Tyr and placed his massive silver hand, you know, the one that he made for himself after Galakron bit the first one off, as a monument to his sacrifice. All the Titan Forge would remember Tyr's sacrifice, but it was the Vrykul that were the most moved by his actions. They're like, got me right there. So Aggramar, you know, the guy with Truth Card, he slammed that shield into the ground, and he said that he would watch over the site. And, well, the rest of the Vrykul were like, yeah, we'll stay here too. Well, Arcadus and Ironaya were like, alright, cool. And they kept moving south with the rest of the Titan Forged. Eventually, they settled at the site of Uldaman and expanded the Titan facility to house the Discs of Norgannon, and to guard the history of Azeroth with their lives. Well, as time passed here, the Earthen began to experience the Curse of Flesh pretty bad. So they actually requested to be placed into a stasis chamber until there was a cure for the Curse of Flesh. The Mechanomes decided to stay awake, even though that they knew they'd be succumbing to the Curse of Flesh in time. They were just going to stay awake and look after this wondrous machinery in this Titan facility. Well, let's take a look at what's going on back up in Ulduar. Loken found out about the fate of the Cathraxi and started to panic. He knew that with Tyr dead, the other two wouldn't assault Ulduar directly, but the Discs of Norgannon posed a threat. He knew he'd be unable to steal them back since Arcadus and Ironaya would be able to build a completely indestructible defense. So, Loken set up a record of history according to his own design, and he named that the Tribunal of Ages. He used this archive to paint himself in a really good light. He's like, I'm the good guy in this story. And to hopefully avoid any future punishment. He also took one final step to prevent any kind of retribution from Arcadus and Ironaya. So he actually altered the Titan communication device in Ulduar that was designed to summon Algalon the Observer, just in case anything happened. He actually changed the communication device so that the only way it would send a signal to Algalon is if Loken ever died. Because he assumed that his death would come at the hands of Arcadus and Ironaya, and Algalon would activate the Forge of Origination, wiping out all life on Azeroth. And this is exactly what Yogg-Saron had intended, to weaken the Titan Forge races of Azeroth so that he could eventually just escape his prison. Now, before we head out, let's check in on the aspects. Things seem to be going pretty good for them, actually. You know, the Winterscorn War, they kicked the crap out of the Winterscorn. But in reality, there was a huge schism across Dragonkind. See, there were purists that loved themselves for who they were and refused to be altered by the Titan's magic. And eventually, they would call themselves the Primalists. And then obviously, there were the Dragonflights on the other side. When Tyr was still around, he saw this division among the dragons that posed a really big problem, especially since there were way more primal dragons than the Ordered. So Tyr was like, hey, I got a really good plan to bolster your numbers. You should take some eggs from the primal dragons and infuse them with Order magic so that they're born ordered. See, this is like a net 2, alright? Because you're not just getting more Order dragon, you're taking some away from the primal. This is like a win-win. Alexstrasza didn't know what to do about this, so she took this plan and asked the others what they thought. Malygos and Neltharion were totally on board. Ysera and Nasdormu were an absolute no. Alexstrasza decided to try and split the difference. So what she said is, we're going to go ahead and move forward with Tyr's plan, but we're going to alter it just a bit. So we're only going to take the eggs that appear to be abandoned. Nasdormu kind of correctly told her, this might be the one thing that actually sparks off the war between dragonkind. And obviously, it's coming. It did. So the primal dragons also needed a way to even the odds between the two sides, and they searched for a natural one on Azeroth. Natural's better. Obviously, what they landed on were the elementals. Elementals are, native to Azeroth. It's not these creepy titans coming in here and changing things. No, so they're like, yeah, let's use the elementals. Well, it was actually Alexstrasza's cousin, Farak, that became the first incarnate, followed by Iridikron and then Raszageth. The final incarnate to join their side would be Vyranoth, but not for quite a while. Vyranoth was actually torn between the two sides because she fully believed that dragons were totally fine the way they were and they didn't need all this order crap. But she was also really good friends with Alexstrasza, like they're besties. Like the besties of the best. And it wasn't until Raszageth attacked Neltharion and destroyed his Titan artifact that he was using to control his creations, or dragon killers, or Drakthir, that he created. The loss of the artifact meant that Neltharion could no longer control them, and so he decided to work with Malygos to lock them up in a magical stasis, since they were, in fact, dragon killers. Also, remember in the last video when I said that Neltharion was a guardian of the deep places? Well, the old gods were down there, and they've been whispering in his mind for hundreds, possibly thousands of years at this point, and he lost it when Raszageth attacked. He embraced the power that the voices had been promising and opened a void portal and imprisoned Raszageth. Well, Vyranoth had also become very good friends with Raszageth at this point and decided to become an incarnate alongside Iridikron and Farak. And at this point, the war still hadn't properly kicked off yet. There was still some belief on the dragon side that a peaceful solution could be found. All of those hopes and dreams went down the drain when their incarnates found proof that the Order dragons had been stealing their eggs and not giving their children a choice. This obviously infuriated the primal dragons, because the aspects had always said that they would never force ordering on them. And the War of the Scaleborn broke out for reals now. It was ultimately decided by Alexstrasza that they would not kill the incarnates, but lock them away in a vault that they built with the help of some of the Titan Keepers. It was also around this time that they got word that Tyr had died, so they knew that they would have to deal with this war on their own. Now, it was obviously Farak that got captured first, since he was super reckless on the battlefield and he couldn't help himself but to join the fight in the front lines, and he got snatched up pretty much right away. Next up was Vyranoth. She was actually defeated by Alexstrasza herself, and this was a truly risky move because Nasdormu warned her that she was the key. She was the key to this whole war. There was actually no timeline in which Alexstrasza died that the Aspects would win. And they finally managed to capture Iridikron when the Aspects assaulted his own base of operations, which was known as Harrow's Deep. Neltharion was actually the only dragon that managed to make it into Iridikron's inner sanctum, since the tunnels through the mountain were always shifting, changing, and moving. It's actually really cool the way it was described in the book. Pretty awesome. Anyway, Neltharion actually led this entire strike force in there, but they got separated because of these crazy moving hallways, and eventually he found his way in there because, well, he was the Earth Warder, and he's really good at, like, that sonar sense in the deep, and he found his way in there. Neltharion was actually losing this fight between him and Iridikron, and just when Iridikron said nothing is stronger than Azeroth itself, that's when the Void whispered up in Neltharion's ears and said, "Lies, we're stronger." Now, I don't know if this is what did it, but Neltharion gave in to the whispers to defeat Iridikron. And after the war was over, Alexstrasza looked up at Vyranoth in the Titan prison and told her this didn't feel like a victory at all. Not without her. And that's where we're going to end it for now. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and why don't you hit that little like and possibly even the sexy little subscribe button. You know you want to click it. Next time, we're actually going to be getting up to the point of recorded history and start talking about troll empires and stuff like that. And if you want to hear more lore talking from me, you can always check out the podcast Live Laugh Lore that I do with my co-host Allie. And you can find it pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. And with that, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.